Alrighty then. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Alex Cuesta Show. Thank you for joining us. We really appreciate you being here. And I say us because on the other side of the screen, in the bowels of the South, is my brother, David. Dave, how are you?
It's not the bowels of the South. I'm in Virginia.
The South is the bowels, period.
That's what?
I love the South, but there's a lot of bowels things going on there.
But how is, you know what? I'm not even going to get into it.
If it's under the Mason-Dixon line, it's bowely. It is a bowely thing. I love the South, but it's bowely. Bowlesque. What would be proper? Bowl-esque? Bowl-ish?
I don't know. I don't like it. It's weird. It just sounds weird.
But again, he's David. Hi, Dave. How are things?
Hi.
How's Virginia?
It's pretty good. That's about all I got, really. Yeah, I've been on a nice long break from work, so.
We're not really going to talk much politics, but we're going to get into this, Dave. How nervous are you that Glenn Youngkin is going to be a rhino?
I'm not nervous at all. I know it's going to happen, but the thing is that you either had Glenn Youngkin or Terry McAuliffe, the guy who's saying parents shouldn't have like any say in what their kids learn in school. So I'm not going to lie to you. Don't like that he's going to be a rhino, but you really didn't have much of a choice there, did we?
I just hope that he doesn't go full Boris Johnson and is like good on one thing and then quite literally far left on everything else.
He's not going to be that. I don't think he'll be that, especially since Winsome Sears is the lieutenant governor. I like her a lot more than I like Youngkin, but we'll see.
All right. So, Dave, this is your job. Any listeners in Virginia, let's get a scandal going. Let's Andrew Cuomo, Glenn Youngkin, so that Winsome Sears can take over.
No. No reason.
I don't know, but I guess, listen, if you're a governor in Virginia, you can rock blackface. You can say keep babies alive until we decide whether or not they should die. So it's like, I guess Virginia's no holds barred. They don't give a shit. They really just don't care in Virginia what you do. As long as you're a governor, it's like, cool, you made it. Congrats. Do whatever the fuck you want. Like, so we shall see. Before we get to the main topic, house cleaning that I do every single week. Ghislaine Maxwell trial. I know her name isn't Ghislaine, but it's Ghislaine here. Ghislaine Maxwell trial still going on, contrary to popular belief, because it's really not being covered super well. I did see a magazine, a newspaper, have Ghislaine on the front page, which was interesting, but it's not being covered. This is what I'll say to people like, no, it's being covered. Just search CNN. It's not being covered as it should be covered. This should be wall to wall. Check in, that annoying, if you watch 24-hour cable news, that annoying every 15 minutes, here's the update on what this pundit has to say type of thing. That is how important this trial should be, and it's not being covered. And to prove to you the importance, another one of the trial trackers has been taken down on Twitter. At Trial Tracker, the original Ghislaine Maxwell trial tracker, as I say, has been offline now for about 2 weeks. And then last week, I don't know exactly when it happened, but the at Maxwell trial, which was basically took over, that one just got taken off as well. So all we got to say here, and all I think here, is that there is something going on that they do not want us to know. They don't want questions. They don't want inquisitive people. And the ones that were running the Maxwell trial openly said they are journalists. They're independent journalists. They flat out said that. So this is now Twitter suppressing the press, which I thought was the biggest no-no in the history of the United States. So they're gone. As I've said before, David said, the one place holding strong, there's two places holding strong right now that you're allowed to be on. At Inner City Press, they were a little confusing at times because they're covering a bunch of trials at one time. So you really have to scroll through their stuff. But that's a good thing because there's another major sex trafficking trial for a public figure going on there. I think it's Don Hennon or something. So that's going on there. And then there's also Joe Newman, or Neerman, not Newman, Joe Neerman. It's a good logic, LAWGIC. His ad is at Neerman Joe, NIERMAN, and then Joe. If you don't know how to spell Joe, that's really unfortunate. I'm not spelling that for you. So go follow them if you're still interested. And if you're not interested, you're pretty fucking terrible, because everybody should be interested in this. Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein, famous people, raped young girls. It was terrible. It is terrible. It still goes on constantly, and we need to chip away at it. And we need to keep the pressure on, because it's horseshit that they keep on trying to suppress this. So, Dave, there's been some updates with it. I know they're talking to 3 lawyers. They want to bring in 3 lawyers that have been asking for the redactions and things like that. It is interesting. It's going on longer than I think Maxwell wanted to. She's refusing to step up and talk in her own trial because her family says she's too sensitive. She's too sensitive to get up there and talk. She was so sensitive in talking to those girls and talking to men to give Jeffrey and Epstein blowjobs and be naked, but she's too sensitive to talk about this. So, Dave, anything from you on this trial that you see popping up of interest?
Not really. It's mainly just don't get thrown off by the verdict of this, whether or not she is guilty or found guilty or not. It's about her, but it's not about her. It's about everything that happened there and all the names. And because don't just say, oh, Maxwell's found guilty. It's justice. Not really justice. The people, a bunch of the people that are still a part of what happened are still out there, maybe not doing it, but they did do this.
Yep.
They could be not doing it now. They could be an upstanding citizen now, but they still did this to these girls. I was about to say women, but girls. Maybe girls. Some of them were women, but girls. So it's not just about Maxwell.
And I really haven't given them a plug, with the last plug with this, Viva Barnes, their podcast, they do talk about the Maxwell trial. They talk about a bunch of law things. If you're interested in listening to law, which I didn't think I was super interested in until I started listening to Viva and Barnes, it's Viva Fry, who is a lawyer from Canada, and it's Robert Barnes, who is a major trial lawyer, openly conservative libertarian trial lawyer here in the United States. He does major cases. He's in front of the Supreme Court. He's goes up against a lot of big names. So he's a popular lawyer, good and bad, depending on what side you're on. But that Viva and Barnes, I think it's Podcast of Law or Law Podcast or something like that. Go look up that podcast if you're interested. And if you are just interested in the Ghislaine Maxwell stuff, they always have what they talk about in their caption. So you could say, okay, this episode, they're talking about Maxwell updates. They're pretty long. They go almost 3 hours a lot of times, but you could skip around, you could find it, or you could listen to the whole thing, because the whole thing is really good. They run one of the better podcasts around in the world of 10 million podcasts. I want you to continue listening to this one, but also go listen to that one because it's solid. So let's get into the nitty gritty of the show. We talked a little bit of our politics, but unlike most of our shows, this is not going to be a political show. David and I are also avid sports fans. We love watching our teams. We love suffering. We've mentioned a few times, if you listen to Cuesta Dos before this or anything, we're both Jets fans. So we are self-hating. But Dave, we're also both Nets fans. So we're getting a little bit of happiness right now with Brooklyn. And I'm going to bring up Brooklyn in this too, because I feel like what I'm going to say in this is relevant to them as well. But the topic about this is just how terrible overall officiating is in sports, period. Like, I don't know if you are a big sports fan and you have been watching sports for a long time, I think it's undeniable that officials are just doing a really, 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 really bad job. Whether it's football, baseball, basketball, soccer, anything, they're all bad. I think soccer is maybe a little bit better because they've always been a little wishy-washy and leagues are different. EPL calls things different than Serie A. Serie A calls it different than La Liga. The rules are the same, but there are definitely differences. But we're probably going to pick on football a little bit more here because I feel like they're one of the most egregious offenders. One of the main things that I've been feeling, and I think, and I've called one of my most popular tweets, which I'm proud of, is I said that refs should start being fined game checks for bad calls. David, you don't agree with the game checks thing because I just think you said it wouldn't matter. Why don't you agree? Because I think that you make an awful fault. Absolutely terrible call. I don't think you should get fired, but I think you just shouldn't get paid. I can't hear you. You need to press the space button. You are muted. See what happens, Dave, when you mute yourself?
I'm sorry. My argument about that is that they're making the calls based on the rules given to them by the people that sign their game checks. The people that sign their game checks are never going to find them game checks, even if the call is bad, because it is a call made basically by the people that give them the checks. Like they're telling them to make these calls, whether good or bad. And they know that they're going to mess up because, well, we'll go over it later, but they know that they're going to mess them up. So they're never going to get fined. If these were like third party in a way, maybe I could see that more because there's more legitimacy to finding them. But that's not what's happening here.
As much as I think that's a valid point, I still stand with find them game checks because fuck them, make a better call. Anyway, David shaking his head at me. But so before we go over this, I do want to put into the air that I think David and I both acknowledge being an official is a thankless job. It is a job. You get paid well to do it, but it is a thankless job. It is a difficult job. It has always been difficult. We look at games on TVs and it doesn't look that quick. It doesn't look like things are going on so fast because in HD, everything, we could see everything. Why didn't they do that? This and that. That's a terrible thing. But when you go to games, if you've ever been, football's fast. Football's always been fast. Where I've been most shell-shocked is both NBA and NHL games. If you go to one of those games, especially for me, the NBA, you just realize, number one, the Monstars from Space Jam are real because these humans are all ogres. Like when a guy that's 6'3" is short, that's a fucking terrifying thing. We are paying absolute ogres. We found a way to put our gigantors and make them entertaining. It's weird when you're there because they are so friggin' fast. And even the slowest guys on the floor are flying up and down the court when it's in real life. It is such a bizarre game. And then you see guys like a Donovan Mitchell, who is legitimately fast. And he gets up and down the floor and it's like he jogs back and it's as fast as like David's sprint. Not mine because I'm fast. David's slow as shit. So it's as fast as David's sprint. I don't think I'm fast anymore. I haven't like worked out in 9 years. But so I'm acknowledging that their job is difficult. I'm also acknowledging that they are putting a absolute assload of rules on these people. New rules that were not into the games originally, and they change the rules constantly. They tweak them constantly. So it is definitely difficult for them, and that's why there are crews. As the higher you get, there's more officials on a field, on a court. There's more there because you need to be able to see all angles, and you see a lot of officiating crews huddle up. Even if it's a simple call, like in football, even if it is a clear offsides, they get together real quick, they talk, they get the number down, who did it, what happened, blah, blah, blah. There's a reason for that because it's difficult. And also, we've seen an uptick in subjective calls along all these sports, calls that are not just as black and white as offsides. Okay, the guy moved. He's offsides. That defender clearly broke the neutral zone and caused that player to move. That's offsides. Those certain things, the face mask was pulled down. Those are not subjective. Those are legitimate rules in football. In basketball, guy goes up for a layup. The guy misses the ball completely, hacks arms, foul. Like those are clear things. Those are easy to see. But then there's a lot of subjective calls. In, the NBA, the clear path call, they have to go to the monitor because that's pretty subjective. You got to, with flagrant calls and technical fouls in basketball, the worst fucking thing on the planet, because you can't even, the worst things, guys sit there and it's a legitimately questionable bad call. And a player might have a scowl on his face at an official, and that official's balls just went back into their body and they became a bitch and they call a tech on them. Like it is, I hate the way techs are called. Technical fouls should be eliminated from basketball if they can't be done right, because they're so stupid in the way that they're implemented. But also in football, pass interference is a bad penalty. period. It's a necessary penalty, but in the way it is called, because it's so subjective, it's awful. Targeting is awful. Leading with your crown of your helmet, awful. They're all shitty penalties. They're all subjective because if you're going by the rule of the game, every single play, somebody should be called for leading with the crown of their helmet. Every single play. And that's without a question. It's similar to holding where they're like, oh, we can call holding every play. That's a fucking terrible rule then. Because it means that you are now deciding to not call the game properly. It's better when they don't because the games flow. But you can quite literally, and that's why it is such bullshit when certain calls happen. I'm going to touch on this a little more later. But that goes on to my next point, that there are way too many calls in games lately. Even in good, there's so many good games where you all of a sudden a bad call changes it. And that happens if the game is relatively clean. But then there's games where through the first quarter, there's like 10 or 11 penalties already called, a bunch on both teams. And there's no rhythm. There's no fun. There's no explosion. Like it's just they're starting off 1st and 20. Okay. Starting off 1st and 15 and 3rd and 1. Oh man, that's a bad call. Or bailout on a bomb. And now they're down from their 20 down to the 45 because of a Mady pass. Like there's so many penalties that get called now. And I don't know, Dave, I'm going to give you a minute to jump in because I just said a lot, but it's like there's so much on this that annoys me just in that small little realm that I talked about.
So a lot of this and a lot of it, we're going to be talking about football. I feel basketball, especially with the refs in basketball, it becomes more of a personal relationship with the players. And like you said, if the player scowls, sometimes if a player scowls the wrong way when a foul is called, the ref might take offense to it.
Or even if it's like a come on, man, if they think it's directed at them, they'll tech them up. It's like, come on.
Yeah, it's gotten really weird in basketball because it is not as many players. So they kind of know the refs a little more. And it's a whole other world in basketball and bad calls. Football wise, it becomes much more become a subjective call on a lot of these things on season, especially when they're implementing the taunting rule now. And I feel like everyone complained about officials before, but it feels like this season people are done with officials. Like it feels like it's come to a breaking point, and I feel like the taunting call really helped solidify that because it's just so utterly ridiculous. And I mean, like one of the things you talked about where someone gets bailed out on a bomb, and I can't remember who said it. It was one of the commentators. I don't think it was a mid-game commentator. I think it was like an analyst, but they said, why would we bail out a QB when he underthrows a receiver? If a receiver is underthrown and the cornerback has good coverage, but maybe they're not looking at the ball, they're going to call a flag on him. And it's just why are we rewarding the QB for a bad throw? And so it's things like that makes the game hard to watch sometimes, and it makes the game very frustrating. And people start disliking your product when it comes to that. And it gets really annoying, especially, I mean, almost every fan believes this, that the refs are calling penalties on their team more. And I don't know the statistics. Maybe some fans are more justified in it. I'm going to tell you almost every fan of every team is going to say it happens to my team the most. We always get screwed. And you may be correct, especially with some specific calls. But like I said, I'm not certain on the statistics, so I'm not going to comment on who's correct or not. But if almost every fan says that during the game, that it gets to be a problem.
All right, now I'm going to touch on a few things here in terms of the refs, because this is one thing that I'm really feel about. I don't think officials give a shit about getting the call right on the field as much as they used to, especially with, in football, place of the ball. whether or not they were in and out, whether or not a catch was made, whether or not a touchdown was scored, because they don't have to be right. There's no emphasis on being right for them anymore. Their call alone in these situations is not going to change the game. And it could be a big time thing where if it's a big 3rd and 14 and a quarterback makes a great throw to the ground, the receiver grabs it. It doesn't matter if they call it incomplete or complete. They're going to get bailed out by a challenge. It's going to go to replay. Regardless, we know it's going to replay. There's not even a question of whether or not it goes to replay. And all touchdowns are reviewed from New York. And replay at first was a good thing because it was like, okay, officials aren't perfect. That was the whole theory. Officials aren't perfect. They do make errors. When they make the errors, this is a good check on it that we can, try and get things right. And then it became an obsession in all sports. Get it right. Get it right. To the point where officials are like, they're going to get it right anyway. Who gives a fuck? I don't care. If I think it's a touchdown, I'm going to call it a touchdown. It might not be a touchdown. We'll find out later. And that, and that happens with basketball with flagrants. If there's this, they don't even call a flagrant on the court anymore. They'll call a regular foul. And then they go to the replay and determine that maybe he got his face. Okay, yeah, he scraped his face a little. That's a flagrant one. Was their intention? Like, they don't have to make these calls where before you weren't getting a replay for a flagrant. You got a flagrant if you punched a guy in the face half the time. Sometimes it was just a tech. If they both went at it and one punch was thrown and they broke it up, all right, no harm, no foul. Are you guys going to do it again? No. Okay, play on tech. Take your shot. You get ball as well. We're good. And the biggest one, I think right now, baseball, I feel like some umps are trying to lose their jobs. I feel like it is an actual effort because some of these strike zones are so fucking stupid. And maybe it's that we notice it more now because the box is there and we do have the ability to look at it. But it's like, man, it's bad. Some of these guys, how bad they are, and they just can't see. And even with baseball, though, baseball might be my biggest pet peeve of replay. It's already a slow sport. And there's a bang, bang play, which used to be the most exciting plays ever. Tie goes to the runner was always the rule. And we just kind of rolled with it because I have to say, your first base umpires are pretty fucking good at what they do. A lot of them are really good. They could see that bag. They see the foot. They see it going in. They could do 9 things at once. Their eyes are like cross-eyed. They're impressive. They are impressive individuals. But now the dumbest thing ever. If it's a close play, maybe they look to the dugout that might have gotten screwed, and you see the manager giving the fucking Hail Hitler, and they're saying, hold on, hold the game. This motherfucker could stop an already slow game to say, let's slow it down some more. Because I don't even know if there's a timer to that. Because I've seen guys hold up their hand, they look back, whoever in the dugout's on the phone, the other dugout manager calling the guys upstairs, because now there's a guy that looks upstairs on every team. And then they get to say, yeah, go delay the game a little fucking more. Because you need to look at that because I'm not sure. Or, yeah, no, we're good here. Go ahead and play. I didn't mean that. Like, I hate that. When I first saw that, when they first did replay, and I was watching, I'm a Yankees fan. I think Joe Girardi threw his hand up. I'm like, who's he saying hi to? Like, what's going on? Is that a new hand signal? And then they're like, oh, we're going to see. He might want to go to replay. And it's like, what do you mean he might want to go to replay? The fuck does that even mean? Like, in basketball, if, unless it's something like a, toe on the line for a 3, they have to call for the replay right away. They have to take a quick timeout if they have possession to call for that replay to give it a chance. In football, if they don't throw that challenge flag out and the play runs again, that's why you see teams that know, like, oh shit, we got him one. We got one. Hurry up, hike. Like, you see that happen because there's baseball. It's like, baseball's the dumbest thing I ever seen in my life. It's like, oh, hey, bro, can you hold on for a sec? Hey, did you get in touch with them? Oh, yeah, you did. Should we challenge this? Oh, hey, hold on one second. My hand's still off. Don't fucking play yet. All right. Oh, no, we're not challenging. Oh, no, the right call. Okay, sorry, guys, right call. Play on, bros. Like, what is that? It's the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. But again, the emphasis there is the onus is not on the officials to be good at their jobs anymore. It's not on the umpires to be good at their jobs anymore. And I think like anybody else, they take pride in their work. but they don't have to anymore. They don't have to. And that goes with the subjectivity, because it bails them out on their subjectivity on a lot of these things, because they're allowed to be wrong. And then what's the point of being an official and upholding rules if it's okay to be wrong? So that annoys me. And a final thing to jump in with this, Dave, is announcers. There's very few good announcers when it comes to talking about officials anymore. Very few. Jeff Van Gundy, I point him out. I like Jeff Van Gundy. He'll call out dumb shit if officials are being terrible. He doesn't care. He's secure with his job. If he loses it, he can go coach. He doesn't care. He's more valuable as an announcer than he to the network. But there's very few. I think Joe Buck and Chris Collinsworth are getting a little more ballsy now that they've completely and totally established themselves as a great team. And, they're pretty good where there's times where like, yeah, this game would be good if there wasn't so many flags type of deal. But a lot of times I hate, especially early in the football year, you're watching pregame and officials, they're like, oh, well, that's a point of emphasis. That's a point. No, that just means that it's a fucking terrible play. It's subjective and they're going to call it constantly, whether or not it happened, just to be safe. Like, I hate that. And I hate when announcers bail them out. And I think that's why they start to bring on retired officials or officials that fucking sucked at their jobs and have to go and be like network officials now and say, well, I would have called it. And no one cares. You're not there. And you don't make a difference. Like, what you just said doesn't make a difference. And half the time they agree with the officials and they give you some dumb fucking reason for why the officials are right about their wrong call. So those two things piss me off, Dave. This whole subject pisses me off because officiating is ruining sports for me, David. It is bad.
To be fair, it's ruining sports, ruining their watch time for a lot of people, because it becomes more frustration than it is enjoyment.
Yep.
And I mean, especially if you're watching a bad team, and I mean, we're Jets fans, but any team that's having a bad season, and then you're seeing fouls or flags on top of it, it starts getting really annoying, especially if some of them are just like, they didn't even do anything
and Dave, I feel
wrong.
I feel like one of the annoying parts is when you watch someone that, like, when you were watching a sport with someone that didn't know, you just kind of had to explain the sport and maybe a few penalties here and there. Now you got to explain the sport and the penalties the whole time. All you're doing is explaining what's going on because there's always a fucking penalty.
Yeah. Yeah. and I guess it just gets really annoying because, especially when it comes to something like holding in the NFL and in football, and for me, whenever I've thought about the holding call, it's mainly because it was egregious. Like, the lineman was beat. He knew he was beat, so he decided to hold. And there are multiple times now, or we'll watch a play, and this is in any game, where sometimes it's just you see him not holding the guy, but he gets called for it. And other times you see a blatant holding and it's not called. And you're wondering where the ref that's supposed to be looking at that is looking. You're wondering, how is it not seen? The
general rule, if anyone doesn't know, for holding in all sports, including the NFL, if your elbows are tucked, essentially you could do whatever the hell you want as long as he's close. If your arms extend, they might call you for a hold if you grab jersey. You have to keep your palms open if your arms are extended. If your elbows are tucked in, though, and you're in position, you're pretty good. You can get underneath the shoulder pads and kind of direct them. It's when you get off your base, when you bear hug, when your elbows go out, they call you. Now they call you for anything.
What it generally is who beat who off the ball. That's really what it is. That's what the call is about. Did you get beat off the ball? Yes or no? If you didn't, most of the time you're going to have control. If you did, you're not going to have control, and you might look for an out. Now, and it gets especially annoying when you can watch quarterbacks roll out and you see like a DN that's trying to set an edge, or even if he wasn't able to, but he's able to run down that quarterback and make life difficult for him. And you see that tackle holding on him. Like, you see the DN reaching with his arm, and it does get called. I'm not saying it never gets called, but it seems like on some plays, on crucial ones, it doesn't get called. And it gets really weird on how it's being officiated.
To be fair, There's a lot of DNs now that act. There's a lot of DNs that when like a Kyler Murray or Lamar gets there and they know they're not getting to him, they 100%. Do the whole arm out and they dance and then you see the tackle like, what is this dude doing?
100%.
And those get called a lot too.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with that, but holding becomes very weird because you could see these things happening and see that the call that was made earlier in the game doesn't seem to be being made later in the game.
Yep.
And it's just, what's the standard here? Why? And maybe one team will get that call and the other one doesn't seem to get that call. And you know, there are makeup calls. We've seen it happen. We've seen it happen multiple times. Yeah. And is that even correct? If you did mess up, is it correct to make a makeup call? Because now you're screwing the other team. So I don't even think it's correct to have a makeup call. Just acknowledge you screwed up and just call it the way that you have it going for that game. Because honestly, the makeup call could ruin the other team more than it was supposed to. Officiating gets wacky. And like you said at the beginning, it really is a thankless job. And honestly, for me, yes, the officials seem extra bad this year, but your anger, your frustration should be at the people making these rules, making it so subjective that, yes, 100%, making it so subjective that these officials have no idea exactly what they have to call.
I refuse. I refuse. I refuse to agree with you there because we have to put some responsibility on the people doing it, and they are subjective. And if enough of them make the calls properly, what are they going to do? They can kick them all out, I'm sure, but then that's going to be a huge class action lawsuit.
It'll never happen the way that you think it'll happen. Especially the taunting call is the perfect. I know this NFL mainly that we're talking about here.
Well, we can, parallel it with targeting, and we can parallel it with hand checking in basketball. There are some calls that are dumb that shouldn't be in those sports that are there.
Yes, but the taunting is the worst one in the NFL. It is the worst rule that we have in sports right now. It really is. It really is the worst rule that we have in sports right now.
Yeah.
Where it is completely subjective on whether or not the person was taunting. And they're like, oh, well, it's mainly if it's directed toward a player. Like, we actually saw someone just spike the ball and then get called for taunting. That happened this year. Like, there's so many things that we have seen with this taunting penalty. And I'm not going to lie to you, the Chiefs player, was it Edward Talea that was called for taunting?
I think so.
Yeah, when he pointed at him as he's running into the end zone because they didn't stop him. It's like, why do you think they cared that much that they got pointed at? No, they cared that he wasn't on the ground before he had a chance to get into the end zone. Not the point.
Deion Sanders would hold the record for the most penalties in NFL history if he was in this generation.
Yes, and every single coach, GM, and owner that's a part of that group that made the taunting penalty. I don't care who it is. They should be looked into, but like, the fans should be very wary of these people that made
the worst part about it all is, especially with that call, is it already existed. It was, I think it was an excessive taunting, or
it was unsportsmanlike conduct.
Unsportsmanlike conduct. That's exactly what it was. Yeah. So it already existed. So it was unnecessary to make it even harder.
Yes.
So Jesus Christmas, Dave. Yeah, I don't know. Do you have more?
It's just when you have the people implementing this and then saying, oh, we just want it to be like a fun environment or something. It gets very obnoxious. I don't care the history that these people have with the game. I really don't. Because none of that matters when they made this rule. None of that matters. Not a single bit of it matters. You've thrown it all away to me.
You never see older players talking about how their time in the game of football, and they go, there was one time where a guy really taunted me and it hurt my feelings, and then it affected the way I played the rest of the game. You've never heard that because it's not a thing.
No. I could understand someone being pissed off that they were taunted at.
Pissed off, but not like hurt, not physically, I can't go on.
No, but the thing is, they could have felt awful because of it happened. But the thing is, they weren't feeling awful because they were taunted at. They were feeling awful because either they didn't do their job or someone didn't, and they let a play go.
Yeah.
They let something bad happen. That's why they felt awful. All right. And I'm good with that.
And that rolls us right into what I want to talk about next, Dave. And it's, again, I keep on saying they all piss me off, but God, being a Jets fan and a former, Nets fan not recently, but in the past, one of the biggest things that annoys me is when there are lopsided penalties, fouls, infractions called on one team, because it's not real. It's bullshit when that is called every single time. We see it with the Jets all the time, Dave. And we've seen it over the years all the time where we'll watch a game and it'll be like 13 penalties to 1, 0, 2 Jets in like the second quarter. And then you always have this team is really undisciplined and that's going to happen under so-and-so head coach. And it's like, okay, you want to tell me under Rex Ryan, the team might be a little bit rowdy and rough and a little undisciplined? Yeah, okay, sure. You want to tell me under guys like Todd Bowles, who has the personality of a spoon, that the team's going to be undisciplined? Like, he is not the guy that's going to rabble rouse anybody. If anything, he's going to go up to him and be like, listen, you just don't do that. Just don't. I didn't appreciate you when you got those extra penalties. So we're going to have to switch that up. We're going to have to fix that. Okay. But it's like, dude, that's not real. Like, and Robert Saleh, yeah, he's rah-rah, but he's the perfect amount. Like, he is, as a human, he is a mullet. He is business in one side, partying on the other. Like, he's a human mullet, because you could just see that, like, big time rah-rah side of him. But you also see when he's got to be business, he's fucking business. Like, he's able. I think Robert Saleh is a human mullet. That is the human mullet. That is going to be his new nickname from now on. But I can't stand it. And I firmly believe that the way games are called are completely and totally affected and impacted by who's playing, the history of the team, and certain players on those teams. And that's in all of these games, because you see Tom Brady gets extra calls. He always has. Certain cornerbacks corner to me is the biggest position, because we had Darrelle Revis, and Darrelle Revis held constantly. But he got away with it as a great. And hold on, before you make your point real quick, Dave, we see this year, for whatever reason, Xavier Howard is getting called a lot on defensive holding, which you would think Xavier Howard, 11 interceptions, shouldn't get called on that. The guy's a great corner, but it really depends on who's playing, the history of that team. Certain teams just get penalties called. Zach Wilson will get a nice rollout, a good completion on a 1st and 20, stepping back and up holding. You know it's coming. You assume it's coming. But then you watch the Bucs, you watch Russell Wilson, you watch Ben Roethlisberger, and you see them do a play that takes 33 seconds, and miraculously nobody held on their line. Like, Dave, you had something. What you got?
I was just going to say, I would argue that there are times where there are games where some teams are actually just committing a lot more penalties because they're getting beat. But like you said with corners, and this is even acknowledged by the commentators in games, if you're a known good corner, you get away with holding. Every good corner holds, like every single one holds, because otherwise you're not going to be able to cover these guys. They just do it usually well enough and stealthily enough that it can't be outright called on them. And that's the whole thing. And I can't remember who it was that said it, but I don't even remember which game it was I was watching, but they said that a young corner was called for a holding because he hasn't been in the league enough. He doesn't have his.
It's so stupid,
and it's dumb. And
the receivers are the same thing. If you're a veteran, good receiver, Devontae Adams is going to get away with something that Elijah Moore on the Jets isn't going to get away with. The pushing off and things like that. Yeah, and that happens all the time.
Yeah, and it's ridiculous. It is, because it's just like, okay,
when it gets called, it's so stupid.
Are these actual standards or are they not?
Yeah.
You ask that question, but I don't know exactly how to fix that with refs, with the
and I go back to certain things like the rub play at the goal line. If Peyton, if Tom Brady, if certain guys are throwing that rub play and it's wide open, they're never going to call the pass interference. That is there and is obviously there. But if it's a younger guy, even if it's like Herbert as a rookie, and if they run a perfect rub play to Keenan Allen, there's a chance they call that because it's Herbert and he needs to earn his stripes, and it's bullshit.
I will say about the rub play and the things that they've done with that lately in the rule book. It seems to me, it has gotten a little better, where it's just like, guys, we know what's happening. We know it's a strategy, and it's a damn good one. But at least show like you're trying to catch the ball.
Or run a route, and then get in their way.
Exactly. Run a route. I think that was a good step. And I think, to me, at least, it seems like it's being called a little better.
Mm-hmm. To me, the most egregious one with the lopsided or the terrible calls is basketball. And this year they have tried to make up for it. They did the James Harden rule, which I will call it the James Harden rule, where they're trying not to give the calls. But for the longest time, Dave, what have we heard from commentary, from everything? The superstar call. And that the superstar calls kind of go away in the playoffs. But there is a superstar call where it doesn't matter who you are. It didn't matter when. This was in the 90s too, where people say, 90s were so much more physical. Michael wouldn't get touched at times and he would get a call. And that's the thing. If you drive to the lane, even if you have a clear path, they will give you an and one if you're a superstar. And it's been going on for a long time. But then you see certain guys getting mauled. Carmelo Anthony is famous for this. Carmelo Anthony never got a superstar call. He did. Don't get me wrong. I'll be checked like, I remember this game at this specific moment. He got that call. And it's like, stop. Typically, Carmelo Anthony did not get the superstar calls, even at his peak, that a lot of other guys get. And to me, that's just, and again, you'll see guys acknowledging it, commentary acknowledging. Donovan Mitchell was another famous one that gets beat to shit and doesn't get the calls. And when he was younger, going in the lane, you would hear commentary going, oh, well, he hasn't been in the game long enough to earn that call. Like, no, that's what fucks all this up. There is no earning calls. It's in the rules or it's not in the rules. Like, there is no if, ands, or buts. And James Harden, I love Harden. He's on the Nets now, but it's like he did benefit a lot from superstar calls. And now on the Nets, he's struggling a little more to find his game because he doesn't get it. But I think he's kind of going back to being a little more old school. He's driving a little harder to the lane now. He's trying to finish instead of trying to get a call. Like, he's adjusting. But Dave, I mentioned that we have firsthand experience at this, so being a Nets fan, because it wasn't that long ago where the Nets were the team that were getting called for every single infraction that wasn't even there all the time. And it wasn't for having bad players. It was even when the Nets had Darren Williams and KG and Brook Lopez and stuff, and they were a good basketball team. They weren't a championship team, but they were a good team. They didn't miss the playoffs their first 6 seasons in Brooklyn. People forget that. Everyone laughs off the Nets, and Nets came into Brooklyn and didn't miss the playoffs for 6 seasons. And we would see those phantom nonsense calls against them that would change a game. But now, look at the Brooklyn Nets. Kevin Durant's here, James Harden, Kyrie, when they stop being draconian dictators, will be back. Patty Mills is a no-name, LaMarcus Aldridge, and all of a sudden, the Nets play great defense. The Nets are a clean team. They are really good. They're not doing anything fucking different than the Oklahoma City Thunder, but the fact that they have guys that are veterans and superstars, they're going to call the foul on Baisley and Dort before they call the same exact foul on James Harden, who's actually trying to play defense this year. And it's a really fun thing to see, but it's just those types of things that have always been in the game. But that type of stuff annoys me. You know what? If you're just going to be a shitty refereeing crew and you're going to call the game like shit against both sides, you guys suck, but at least you're calling it. If you're going to be the type of crew that for whatever reason only sees one color on the field, it ruins the game for everyone. And it's, again, your job's hard, but you make your job, you bring the criticism on yourself when you do that type of shit. So annoyed. So annoyed, David. All I do is get annoyed.
Yeah, but that's the fun part.
The rants. What do you feel about the lopsidedness? I feel like, it's not only the Jets. It's the Lions have typically gotten this treatment. The Browns have gotten this treatment.
I've seen Raiders fans talk about this a lot.
The Bills used to still get this, even though they're a superstar-laden team. You'll see Josh Allen roll out, make a great play, and then get called back with the holding. Like, that doesn't happen to a lot of other players and a lot of other teams. It's frustrating.
Yeah, it is frustrating. And like I said earlier, I don't know the statistics of the calls. I don't know you could be wrong in a way because you're seeing it in a different way than what the game's actually.
There's numbers versus the eye test though, because you know what? Like you said, there's makeup calls, and they could sit there and if it's a blowout game in the fourth quarter, they can make all these calls, and all of a sudden the numbers are a lot more even.
No, I don't disagree with that, but there is lopsided calls and there is superstar calls, and we know this. We know that's a thing, and I don't know why it exactly works that way. Maybe I can make some guesstimations as to why, but I mean, it's something that I've always seen in sports. So I don't know exactly how it would change. I don't know how drastically it would need to change because honestly, people got along with it just fine before everything kind of got wonky with officiating. Yeah. Like we understood it that it happened, but we also understood that it didn't seem to happen enough to where it really dominated teams that are doesn't have enough superstars or enough prestige. So I'm not entirely sure if this is just being shown more because of how weirdly bad officiating's been recently, or if it's something that does really need to change that much.
With that being said, I want to do my final thing on this is replay needs to be abolished from sports. It needs to be gone. It needs to go back to being the fun thing that the announcers had as a tool to show a certain play and how cool it looked. And, the freakish athleticism of these players through instant replay, or that missed call that could have changed the game if it was called this way. John Madden, Pat Summerall were the best at it, with John Madden drawing a wrong and drawing a ton of dicks all the time inadvertently. But it needs to go away. Replay was a cool idea. In theory, it's good to kind of help the refs out, but in practice, it's been bad. And with what I just said about the lopsided calls and everything, that I still miss the human error side of the game. I would take lopsided games and bad calls over all this replay. And I think the officials would buck up and get a little better again and really try to make better calls. So I hate replay. I know it's not going anywhere, but I think it does need to go away because I do miss the human error side. I think one thing that could fix this all, Dave, I don't know about other sports, but I know in football, this is not their main job. A lot of these guys are doctors and lawyers and stuff on the side, and they have their own practices. And during the football season, they do what they do. But then on the side, they go and they make their money on the other thing. We need to figure out a way to get refs or just refs. They shouldn't have other occupations. They should only have their craft. They should only have to hone their craft, because then maybe it wouldn't have to be as much of, well, they need the preseason to get used to these rules. Like, no, they might be able to go in. Who knows what they could do on the side, but they could figure something out where these people are full-time officials and they can, if a new rule comes down from the owners, and I'm not going to say governors in basketball. It's the dumbest fucking thing I ever heard in my life. Governors imply that they were voted in. Nobody votes in somebody that buys a team. They are owners. And honestly, you stupid idiots, governors are worse because they can make rules on you completely and totally, and you have to follow them anyway. It makes no difference. They're owners, you idiots. Anyway, once the owners come down with the rules, they can right away get to work. In theory, these officials probably get to work anyway, but if they have their side jobs and they're still working as lawyers and they're still practicing, or they're still doctors and things like that, their focus isn't 100% there. They're not trying to hone this down right away, watch a ton of film, get this all working. We need to have officials that are full-time officials. Dave, I'm not trying to start anything here. I don't know what there is to be said that there are more females jumping into the world of officiating. I don't know if that's a commentary on anything about it. I think basketball is a different animal because the women's game in basketball is extremely similar. It's all the same rules, some different dimensions, but the rules are the same. Football, women don't necessarily play football at a vast scale. There are some female leagues, but on a vast scale, it's not evenly played. So I don't know if, and then people will say like, oh, well, officials, a lot of them didn't play. There's a good amount of them that probably played in high school at Pop Warner, I'd imagine. They probably have played the game at some point. So I don't know if there's any correlation to the way that things are being called. I think officials just kind of suck now. I don't know if it has anything to do with women being in, but And again, it shouldn't matter who's calling it as long as they could do their goddamn job. But overall, Dave, I think we're going to have a bunch of robots calling everything soon. I don't think there's going to be humans anywhere anymore. We're going to have Skycam making calls with a red light if a penalty goes off, green light if the play's good. And, a quarterback's going to know right away if they have a free play or not, or if there'll be a loud beep. There'll be C3PO running on the field. I don't know.
Even that's going to get it wrong. That's the funny part.
Oh, I can't.
That's going to get it wrong.
If there's a malfunction and they have to stop the game to reboot the hard drive.
It's not going to be about a malfunction. How in the hell is a robot going to officiate a football game? Tell me. Tell me how it's going to happen.
Figure it out.
They won't. They can't. They can't. They actually can't.
Because
even if we program in the robot, these are the rules. We'll never get the game going. Like they say, well, we can call holding on every play. Get ready for holding to be called on every play. It'll never happen. It'll never happen. It'll never happen correctly. It would be a whole new game where we would need robot officials.
Or it could just, just be terrible, terrible individuals like the robots that were created. I think I don't know where Boston were when they started the program, and it was just being completely and totally racist and fantastic, and just the funny things that they were saying over there.
I don't remember where that was, but
I think it could eventually go that way where we will see even a skew there, like you said.
I'm telling you, it's all about the rule books and what the rules are. The officiating is a problem, but you don't get this much of a problem if the rules aren't what they are right now.
All right. So I guess the only solution is for David to take over and make all the rules. And that would solve them.
That's untrue.
For all sports.
I would like to help, but that is untrue.
All the rules, he would be draconian. He'd be a leader. Dave, if you ever do get that power, I need you to do a few things. One, stop making women wear fucking skirts. Dumbest thing I ever heard in any sport. Number two, make women's lacrosse actually lacrosse. Let them hit each other, put pads on them. And number three, just eliminate field hockey as a sport. It's not real.
I would make football the sport. What was it? Sarcastaball from South Park. That's what I would do. If I remember correctly, a Sarcastaball, it will become that, and that's what I would do.
All right. So me and Dave are done about I'm generally done being pissed off about the refs. David flared up a little bit. We got a little mini David rant. Whenever there's mini David rants on any show, it's a good time because I have to strike some sort of a nerve. And when I do, it's good. David is currently trying to tie a wire noose around his neck. And I think we need to send help. Talking about the officials is put him over the deep end. All right. So everybody, I want to appreciate you all for listening. I didn't say my spiel in the beginning, but you know what it is. You press play. You didn't have to. Always appreciate it when anyone does press play and listens to this point in the show. It's fantastic. We really do appreciate it. I'd give you the socials if I feel like it, but I still don't. I never will. My name, Alex Cuesta Show. Last name, Cuesta. David and I share it. It's fairly unique and it's easy to find. Please go search it. Give likes, give shares, give follows, spread word of mouth. And I hope everyone likes to switch up from politics a little bit. We might get back to it. We might not. Its show is literally whatever the fuck I want to talk about. And David just says, yeah, because David does not care. So again, everybody, I really appreciate everyone listening. All have a good one.